All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you are listening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. I'm so excited that you're back for another episode of Give Black, Give Back Conversations. I am Kia Jarmon, your co-host, and my other co-half, my co-conspirator in this justice work, Lisa Swift-Young, is not with us, but just know she'll be back next time. I want to tell you a little bit more about Give Black, Give Back before we get into the dynamic conversation we're going to have this Black History Month. So let me tell you a little bit more about Give Black, Give Back. We have a 3-part mission to promote the Black-led funds housed at the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, to advance Black-led nonprofits that are in our Giving Matters portfolio. And so if you are not in that portfolio, please make sure that you get online with us because we'd love to also support you. And then to educate the community on the ways to decrease the Black wealth gap. This is really important and central to us. Learn more at our website, blackgivingback.com. So let me tell you a little bit about our conversation today. We are in the middle of Black History Month, and it is important. There's a variety of memes and things you see on social media, but what is always most important to me to celebrate during this month, because let's be clear, we're Black 365, 366 in a leap year, and this is the month in which the government has to celebrate as a full community, but we're always celebrating. But during this month, we celebrate Black joy. And so as I kept thinking about who is the person to bring forward in this conversation, this guest that we have is the person to talk about Black joy, mostly because the visuals of Black joy that we see across our city of Nashville, our state, and our country, because our good sis has wide reach. I couldn't think of anybody else but this person. So please welcome Elisheba Mrozik to the conversation. I'm so glad to have you with me today. She is owner of One Drop Ink Tattoo Shop here in Nashville, and then also champions community, all things community, because that's how I met her, particularly running an online platform and also initiatives she'll talk about in just a moment at 37208 Creates. Go follow on Instagram. So welcome to Give Black, Give Back Conversations, Elisheba. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being invited, and I'm excited for our conversation today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as you think about, when I think about you and when I talk to people who think about you, when I first learned about you, it was Elisheba, the tattoo artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Outside, oh man, like the muralist, the altar creator for our ancestors. I don't know, just the repertoire that you have of just design and creation is remarkable. And so I want you to tell us how you got started. Like, how did you become this, right? Like, take us back to where you started, who you are, like how you got here, and then tell us.
Yes. So well, it's a story. It's been a journey. So I'm from Memphis originally, and I've been in Nashville since 2007. And I graduated from Memphis College of Art, and I've always been an artist my whole life. My kindergarten art teacher told my mom I had some talent and to get me classes. Yeah. And it's just been art since then. And I started my main career tattooing 12 years ago in January of 2011, actually. And I opened my shop in May 2011. So it's a story there I'm not going to get into, but I was forced to really firsthand reckon with discrimination in the industry. And so I really had to go through a lot of twists and turns to establish myself as an artist, and then to keep building to get on this level. And after my experiences there and just in existence as a Black woman, I have been very community oriented because I like unique things. I like things that are not Black per se. Like I want to go and do and experience all the amazing things that have interested me in the world. And a lot of them are not in spaces that are considered Black. And so I've always gotten a lot of pushback for existing in these different spaces. And so my community work really focuses on Black women and Black girls and giving them the empowering identities to live their life as they choose without always being, held back by the stereotypes of what you should or should not be doing because you look like XYZ. And that journey hardcore started in the tattoo industry. I'm the first licensed Black tattooer in Middle Tennessee. My shop's the first licensed Black tattoo shop in Middle Tennessee. And it was a ridiculous journey that, even looking back on it, it didn't make sense why so many people don't like dark skin to tattoo or Black skin to tattoo and still don't. There's so much discrimination still within the industry, not just from getting an actual apprenticeship to be an artist, but also because of discrimination against skin tones because they feel like they can't do good tattoos on darker skin. But even from that, they don't want to learn how to do it. They just say you can't. They don't want to experiment. And they also don't make products for darker skin tones. So there's a lot of factors going into why we're hindered in a lot of things. And innovation and funding into them is a part of the problem. But when they can just say, well, we don't care about you, then, they can make products that does actually, fix anything or help us at all. So it's a lot of issues compounded on top of each other that really got me frustrated with and wanting to do more community work. And that's where the North Nashville Arts Coalition comes in, which is my nonprofit that was started by myself and 7 other Black creatives in North Nashville. When we first started, all of us were artists. I was a tattooer, but everybody was an artist of some genre and medium. And we couldn't get work. Like we couldn't get gallery shows. We couldn't get space. And they would only call us, for Black History Month. We wouldn't get any opportunities outside of that except when they needed to look diverse. And myself having a business on Jefferson and connections with the other Black-owned businesses, we all made partnerships to host the Jefferson Street Art Crawl, which went on for 5 years that we did on an all-volunteer basis with no budget. And it was really a community organizing, collective partnerships and community. It was true community how the crawl was working. And when the pandemic hit, the crawl stopped. It was, like I said, we had no budget. So it was just manpower. And when manpower can't be around, things can't work. But we had already applied for 501c3 at that point, and we had, but we didn't really know anything about nonprofit work. We thought, you get a nonprofit, yeah, you can get grants, So I spent part of 2020 learning about nonprofit management, what that looks like, and how we can get the nonprofit to a point to start getting funding so that we can bring back not only the crawl, but other initiatives like 37208 Creates, which is our vision initiative. Like our mission is to support Black artists and creatives in North Nashville, but our vision is to have a permanent home for the arts in North Nashville. That's a building, an actual space owned by the community so that it cannot be co-opted by the powers that be as gentrification continues to sprawl and take over spaces that were traditionally not wanted by those people. And so our big vision is to get that space made, and it would have for Black creatives that's actually affordable by a normal person's definition of affordable, and to also have gallery space, studio space, and maker space. Because one thing that I've learned in my career is that until you get a dedicated space for your creativity and art making and ability to push your business forward as an entrepreneur, you need space to do it. You can't do it in your home the same way. And once you grow to a certain level, you really got to get that separate kind of space set up. So this space would also have retail space to help local businesses launch and to support the creative things above. Now, this is not something that's new, either. This is something that's been done in other cities who tend to lean more liberal than us. But in Chicago, for example, Theaster Gates has an amazing project, Dorchester Art Housing, where they have something similar without the like retail. And then also in Texas, in Houston, Texas, there is an amazing nonprofit called Project Row House. It's been around since the 90s, and it's amazing. They took these old houses that were in risk of being destroyed. They were row houses in a Black neighborhood. They purchased them all and revamped them into art spaces. And they have rounds of artists be able to transform these homes into beautiful works of art. And they ask questions, they challenge people, they draw in tourism to the area, which is funding and economic growth for the area. They've expanded now to purchase more properties to provide studio spaces that are insanely affordable for it and creative in their career. And as you know, artists do not have a union. Although we are a skilled labor, we do not get paid as such. And there's no one advocating for creatives to have fair pay for the work that they have, even though the art part of everything is what you remember. The packaging, the labels, the designs, the logos, the beautiful thing on the wall that inspired you to come over here and gentrify the place. Those are the things that people do not want to pay for. They just think we should give it out of passion and love. And without the advocacy for creatives and somebody fighting to give the creatives not only a space and a place that actually works with their budget, but also helping to train them to grow their creative practice, is so necessary and vital to a healthy community and to us all as a society. Right now, I feel like there's kind of an attack on artists with creative professional artists, because things like AI art and things like that are going to put a lot of creative professionals out of business. It's fun right now until, instead of hiring a professional artist to do something, they can just type words into an AI machine and get an image, because every day it gets better and faster and more accurate than we can do, and for a much less price. Mm-hmm. And we all know that America was built on free labor. And so the first thing that companies cut are labor costs. So that's just a quick kind of overview of the North Nashville Arts Coalition, our main vision project. But the other things that we want to do, which we're working on trying to get organizational funding right now, we've had 2 small grants from Tennessee Arts Commission. Shout out Tennessee Arts for believing in us and giving us our first 2 small grants that we used. One we used to do the African Street Fest this year. We had a giant interactive tent with arts programming the entire weekend. We served hundreds and hundreds of people who came through, and everybody was asking, when are there going to be classes? When are there going to be this? Do you have a place? We don't have any of that. So we see with just that one thing, plus other activities that we've done, the need for this space and the need for funding directly to artists and creatives, because we really have to start changing how we educate not only like young kids, but everybody, and how to interact better as people in order for us to be able to grow to a new place in a better community. Because right now we're all over the
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, you said so many things, and what folks who watch will know or listen is that I'm always taking, copious notes. So I'm always listening, but I hear so many things, and I think what I hope that people gather is why you are a guest. Why it is that I never want people to minimize your work to tattoo artists. This is why it's like just creator.
It always comes back to tattoos. It doesn't matter what the conversation is.
But the cool thing that I love though is you just spoke about all the pieces that people have no clue about, right? Like the idea is I have a thought about a tattoo, I come in, I get it, I leave, right? That's the normal kind of consumer process. What you're talking about is systemic change, because what you're saying is that the industry of tattooing is one which, and I've heard you speak about this in interviews and so forth across the country about darker skin not being tattooable because it's convenient to just say, we don't know how to do it. It won't last. It won't look good. I don't want my stuff to look like that.
Well, let me just interject a little, because the thing is, and there are some tattooers out there who aren't discriminating on purpose, but it's been taught in the industry too that dark skin's not good, because we're comparing it to white skin and white paper, and not the fact that in art we use sepia tone paper. Like, I got this piece behind me that's on a sepia tone. Like, there's art styles that use all kinds of colorways and theories, but for some reason that just doesn't work for tattooing. Nobody wants to think outside of that box. It's also giving us the wrong perspective on what to expect when we get a tattoo, because people will post pictures of fresh tattoos on darker skin that have tons of like yellows and whites in them, and nobody posts the healed picture so you can see what it looks like over time, because the way it even works is tattoos go under into your epidermis. Okay, there's multiple layers to your epidermis. We place the ink in a certain point, not too deep so it doesn't scar, not too shallow so it doesn't shed with your skin. Melanin is stronger than ink. It's also consistently being created in our skin all the time, because we have the cells, the melanocytes, that actually produce the melanin. Those come back after the tattoo and make a thin film over the skin. So we're essentially looking through a sepia filter at the ink. Now, when we die and the melanin stops being made, our skin turns white and the tattoos look just as bright as they were new. There's actually a company that cuts your skin off when you die of your tattoos if you want to save them. And so I've seen what that looks like. So yeah, it's very macabre.
Okay, there's an industry for everything, right? No.
Honey, and there is an industry for everything. Yes. Wow. So we're fighting against one, genetic codes, but again, nobody's investing in products. I've been looking for chemists for a while to try to create some inks, specifically because I have some hypotheses just from working with our skin over the past 12 years of things that may be able to work and change the tide of that. Because I love color. A lot of my work is color based. I would love to be covered in super bright color tattoos, but also we have to change our idea of what is good looking, right? That is also a discriminatory practice. And that goes not only for tattoos, and we don't want it to look like XYZ, but that goes for everything.
It's
relationship.
Hair. I was gonna say, yeah, absolutely.
Hair, so much. And don't even get me started. Yeah. Don't even get me started. But I'm going to touch on some of it. But that's the biggest thing in tattooing. But also the fact that discrimination is so heavy and so ingrained subliminally, because they're doing things like blackout tattoos.
Oh, yes,
they cover your whole skin with solid black ink. And then not only that, you then experiment with it. They have no problem experimenting, tattooing color over the black, tattooing white over the black, doing all kinds of things to make unique designs in the black ink. But when you're actually on black skin, it's no. Nobody wants to innovate that way. And Black artists are still pretty fresh in the industry. Miss Jackie Gresham, who I got a fortunate chance to meet and tattoo and get a tattoo from, was the first Black female tattooer, first Black tattooer in America that's known, who was in the actual industry and out there. And she worked her way in and fought the battle she needed to fight in order to be able to tattoo. And even back then, she was telling me how she was trying to introduce these different concepts, but the industry was just not receptive because of the racism. But the tattooing industry goes back to biker gangs and things like that, that always had heavy right leaning extremist tendencies, which did not include us. So the industry itself started in those kind of shops and places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about this when you talked about 37208 creates and the North Nashville Arts
Coalition.
Thank you. You talked about, philanthropy in that. And one of the things that you said that really was the bright light for me that I want to make sure that the listeners really understand when you talk about manpower, when we talk about the 5 T's of philanthropy, we talk about time, talent, treasure, truth, and testimony. So we're living in our truth and testimony here. You give out money, when you are supporting other folks. Your talent is how you show up, sometimes in the areas that people don't even recognize you for, in the workplace. So they see you as the tattoo artist. You come in as one, and then you bring 1,000 other, skills and talents. And then the time, that's the manpower piece you were talking about. And so often we give so much time to our community because we're communal people in our most indigenous space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to think back to your philanthropy origin story. This is usually one of our first questions. How did you get started knowing, you might not have called it philanthropy, but how did you know that giving was going to be so central to who you are as a person? Give us a story about, how that came about.
So it really I'm not like a nonprofit. I had no idea about any of these kind of things. And, everything is sus to me just because of the nature of capitalism and how these things work and how they were created. But as I've been tattooing, I've been talking to so many people. I talk to hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of people, and having conversations with people, and not for a couple minutes, but for hours while I've worked on them with personal pieces in their personal space. And I've just talked to so many people in our community and around the world. And the basic things are all the same. Like the basic things I hear about what people need and what they feel like is holding them back, they all are very similar. And so being that Black women have been the majority of my clients throughout the years, listening to them and hearing their stories really helped push me to wanting to do a lot of philanthropy work. Because again, kind of going back to me wanting to do things and always being told I'm not supposed to be here or looked at crazy or fought with for entering the spaces. So many people have been like, wow, like, how do you go do these things? Like, I couldn't do that, or I'm not supposed to be there. And it's just not, it's not true. And my biggest reason for doing a lot of the work is because I really want to make lasting, actionable change in the narrative surrounding Black women and our identities and the culture of the Black community, because the subliminal messaging from everywhere else is telling us we are not all the time. No, no, no. I'll talk about, so, there's a new movie just came out called You People, with Eddie Murphy and what's his name? Jonah Hill. And this movie just reinforced something that I already knew. I was hoping it would be different because Eddie Murphy was in it and he had his Black Power shirt on and things like that. Yeah. But if you look at a history of propaganda, I'm calling everything propaganda, movies, TV shows, literature, etc., you'll notice whenever there's relationships, man, woman, if it's Black man, white woman, it's always a really dark-skinned Black man. He's dark, he's Black man. Whenever there's a white man and a Black woman, she's ambiguously Black, she's mixed, she's light-skinned. Even when it's a Black family, the dad's usually darker skin and the wife is always mixed race, ambiguous race. And the dark-skinned women in those shows are the perpetually single. Think Pam from Living Single, are always super stereotyped. Think those sidekicks from Empire. The Empire's, it's so ridiculous. Anyway, but all of these messages that are sent subliminally are telling Black women, darker skinned Black women, that they are not able to be loved or desired by any race or by any person. And it's putting messages in their head that they have to be XYZ things and that they don't belong here. And that the only way you see them is that they're ignorant, if they are a fetish, and things like that. And so my work really focuses on reclaiming our identity and making it be what we say it is. Like, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. You cannot tell me what I have to be or that I am not loved and desired by whomever, because in real life, it's not the case, you know, but how the popular culture sees it, it's putting the subliminal messages of negativity specifically toward Black women over every other woman. And even in attempts to be diverse, they still miss the mark in so many ways. And so that is a very personal matter as well, but it affects so many young women. And I do a lot of mentorship and work with young people and teens, and the bullying against young girls who do not fit these descriptions, the outright negative actions and words toward them, and the way they are treated because of this subliminal hate that's already being put upon them is really damaging to their mental health and well-being. A lot of these kids are bullied, they're super creative, and now they're stuck in a place where they don't love themselves and they don't think they are worthy. And so that's shown in how they are acting out, and them searching for, you know, anyone to accept them in the wrong places, and allows them open for abuse and things like that. So, and specifically with creative young people, I always try to connect with them in some way, because they have such a talent that gets overlooked a lot because it's not considered a viable economic path. It's not a good job. My mom still tells me to go get a job. So with benefits.
I was gonna say, bless our parents, right? Lord have mercy.
So if we can get the not only respect for the job of creative, but for your abilities as a human, and not because you XYZ look away and your assumptions say that when you see me that I must be X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We have to dispel those, but it's going to be up to us, and we have to demand that in our representation, both in propaganda, and not accept the status quo that they feed to us. So that's really a big point in why I begin that.
Yeah. Well, you know, and we didn't have this conversation, so you had no clue I was planning on doing this little commercial in between this segment. So this is a good time to do it, because you queued it up so perfectly before I get into our conversation about Black Joy today, which you've really been doing a lot of good historical perspective around why this conversation is so important. But I wanted to highlight our 2023 National Black Philanthropy Month theme, and give a little precursor to that. And so the theme this year is love in action. And so, you know, it's interesting because in our conversation for 2022 during Black Philanthropy Month, which is in August, so the whole month of August, we celebrate and honor, you know, our work across the diaspora in our giving in those 5 areas of giving that we have. And so last year we were talking about finances. We were talking about, you know, who inspired us, all these things, and love continued to be what sent the centerpiece. And partly because talking about propaganda, the propaganda is that we are not lovable.
Yes.
Black community, right? That's the propaganda.
Angry, right. We're lazy, we're promiscuous.
All the contradictions.
Same narratives, and none of them are positive.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so all of that, you know, propaganda against us, the question really is, what would happen if humanity, if people loved us like the fullness of who we were? What would happen? What would that really look like in our communities? And really, our guest today has been talking about that. Like, here's what could happen. What I also love is you're saying, here's what's happening because we're not doing that. And so love is this action word. It is a verb. It is not just emotion that feels good to us. It really is, you know, we want to live it out. And it's inspired from the national office it's inspired by bell hooks. And so, so I had to go pull out my bell hooks book, and all about love. And, really that's going to be our guiding text, is some of her content over the next several months. And so I wanted to give that little precursor about philanthropy really is love of humanity. And the questions have to be, who do we consider humanity? What's the human part, right? And so who that is us. And so I wanted to put that in the middle of this, because what's important to me is for us to get to the next part of this conversation, which is about Black joy. You, as I've said at the top of this, were so perfect to me to be our guest today to talk about Black joy, because when I look at your art, whether it is folks who had to wait 14 months to get an appointment, wink, wink, because that's the reality. Okay, people are like, 2 years ago, I made an appointment with Elisheba and I'm just now getting in. Like, that's a real thing. Okay. Because people are coming from all across the world, right? Like, to come in to sit in your chair. And that's the great challenge when you are also, holding these mantles, but we can get to that in a second. But one, I've seen the art on people. And I've seen it long after it's dried and healed, and it's beautiful. And I've seen it on the side of buildings. I've seen it erected in lots of places. And so that art to me represents love and excitement and excellence and continuity and consistency and all the things that I think about, abundance, fortitude, all the things I think about when I think about being Black. Okay. And so that's why you were the perfect person for this Black joy conversation. So talk to me about how you define Black joy.
Yes. So Black joy is existing as you will. Like, it is no one telling me what I can do to be happy. And I mean, I have it. Like, I have it. I'm so excited and blessed to have it. But I have the ability to be joyful, and I am joyful because I get to experience life as I will. And even though these battles I have to fight, like, I went sailing, like I went and got certified to sail a boat into the ocean, and I was gone for 3 weeks, and I took these courses.
Wow.
Listen, from Miami to Bahamas, we sailed on a little catamaran across the Gulf Stream, and it was so super exciting. Like, it was something I wanted to do and something that I was thinking about for our family in the future, wanting to maybe get a boat and explore this whole new world and way of existence. And that joy doesn't come from me just sitting in the roles that were supposedly determined for me. And I think so much of Blackness is determined by what is Black, that when we get to finally just exist, however we will, that's where the joy actually comes in, I think about, like, the women in my family, my mom and my aunts and stuff. Like, my grandma had 8 kids, and very few of the girls got to go and do the different things they wanted to in their life. I'm really, like, the first one to be able to have this full, fulfilling thing, like, not only do I have a very happy marriage and relationship, I have a business and I have a career that I love, and I have kids who are awesome and who are loved, and a community and people around me who I care about and who love me and who support me as I support them. And that is joy. I mean, one thing that, like, white people can do is they can go anywhere. There's not a you can't go here kind of thing. You can't do this kind of thing. And I often want to travel to places that, probably I can't go to, but I, like I think about that before I even go and attempt to do something, because what is the reception going to be of me because I am this person to them in the world, because of propaganda spread about XYZ, and being a woman is also hindering to going to some places, even within Africa. And so that joyfulness really comes from just being able to exist in any way that I will. And I think if more people had that ability, and also had somebody to share in that with them, like we have to really work on changing the narrative towards us so that we can have joy, because it's really tiring when you're always having a fight. It's really tiring when you're always having to explain or temper your emotions or reactions, or having to always explain why you are here and whatever. Like when I walked into the boatyard to go to that sailing class, it was immediately like,
Yep. Like, did you get turned around on the way?
Are you lost? Like, no, I'm here for this. Okay. So
because the question really is like, well, how do you have the privilege? How do you have, and you said something that I want to just extend, because you were already going in this direction, which is that Blackness is usually centered to be the opposition to whiteness. Right? It's not centered in our own excellence or centered in our own ability. What you said, what I heard you say, you didn't say this, but what I wrote down was the permission to live, to just be, to go. And you're right. It's often that our space is so intruded upon all the time, like physical space, that we do have to be mindful, because it's a safety issue. It's not just a matter of like, oh, maybe you feel a little uncomfortable. Because most of us we live in discomfort. Like, I could deal with discomfort. It is literal safety. Like, am I going to make it out and still get home to my kids or my spouse or my family? Like, that's a real dynamic that I want to make sure our listeners are hearing. And then the last piece, because I like to just kind of recap the notes. The last piece that you talked about was that communal healing, because joy alone is not joyful, right? Like, having just, I feel the same way you feel, all the freedoms to be able to walk and move about the world. And also it's also like, okay, my girls got to be free too, right? And so we're working on that communal healing, because again, we're communal people. Speaking of, what are the things that keep you grounded in that joy? And so I've experienced, your altars to the ancestors. I've been in your space and seen like there's a feeling that happens, right? Because there's an energy, we're all energy people. I've told people, if you don't do right by the soil, it'll come up and get you, And so like your space, you're on historic Jefferson Street, you're in a historically Black owned building. That many folks in Nashville may or may not know, that was, I believe, a funeral home, then a day spa, and now is
still owned by the same family, the Gardeners.
Which is, I say that because when we talk about Blackness, Black owned, Black artists, it is not just to put that word in front. It is because it weighs so much in our experience. But what are the things that keep you grounded or centered so you can always get back to joy? Like, what is that about for you?
The art making process, the research process that goes into the making of the art, because I try to do stuff with intention, on purpose all the time, because there's enough just extra stuff in the world. There's enough just stuff. Anybody, like now, anybody can draw. Like, everybody can draw. There's the things out there. Some people have a really great style for this. Some people have a really great style for that. There's plenty of just images. And back in the day when I used to draw, just the Black girls and all of the different stuff, everybody does that now. It's cool. It's dope. And representation matters. But what I'm trying to do is not just here's a picture, but I want it to have something with it. Like, you're going to leave with some knowledge. You're going to leave with hopefully a new idea of how to interact in the world. and how to understand how you fit into this and what you can do to start to help be solution. Like, I want these questions and stuff to come up so people can start actually thinking about solutions to this. Because the way it looks right now is that there are people who do not want solutions because the chaos allows them to be prosperous. And we have to create solutions on our level. We can't look to them because they're going to make the money. And if there's somebody making money, they are definitely not here to stop their gravy train. And so the artwork is for everyday regular people to just start looking at things in a different light and start thinking about what they can do in small ways that can help their community, because we all got to live under capitalism. We all have to exist in this space. And so we can do it the best way we can, but there's ways to do it without hurting people. Like, there are ways to have prosperity and happiness without going through and hurting the vast majority of people. Greed is the deadliest sin, if you ask me, and it was the one that leads to pretty much all others. So it really just challenges, hopefully, our perspective of what is necessary and what we need to exist and be happy, and also to give a new lens to those who may not have it as to who is being hurt and why it is bad that they are being hurt. Because, you know, we all know that Black women have all of these things that the entire world loves, but not the person. And they take and they take. And Black women have historically been the givers, the kind of foundation of not only their families and the Black community, but of the entire nation. We have supported everyone from raising the children and the babies to working to make sure things are taken care of when others step away or refuse to do the work. It tends to be Black women, and yet we don't get the love, we do not get the respect, and we continuously get the subliminal messaging and propaganda that tells us that we ain't shit.
Yeah.
And we cannot continue to allow that to happen if we want to not only make Black American culture the powerhouse that it is, to not only give us prosperity economically, because we have now retained the ownership of those things, and we now have the lessons needed to capitalize off of that in this society, but to bring us together as a people who desperately need to be brought together, because even though we are not from the same tribes in Africa, wherever they may be, we were brought together as one people under a shared trauma, and we have a unique space in the world in that everything that we've created from that trauma of existing as a Black person in America and a child of the diaspora is now the most popular things in the world. They are now the most coveted things in the world. I mean, I was making a birthday invitation for my son, and I went on to Canva and I searched the images. You know, they have little images, and he's gonna have a breakdancing party, like a hip hop dance party. I typed in breakdance and hip hop, and it was not a single picture of a Black person. It was under hip hop, under breakdance. Like, these are things that were invented by Black people, but their faces aren't even associated with them. They've been able to take things and disassociate it from Blackness so that it's palatable to the general population because of the negative connotations always associated with Blackness, which started in the 1400s and is still perpetually done today. So
absolutely. Yeah, James Baldwin says history is present, right? And so 1400 years ago and yesterday, right? Or year 1400 and just yesterday, same history is happening, and we're experiencing that. So I appreciate that answer. I really appreciate that answer, talking really about how the art making is core to your kind of grounding?
In music, I forgot to say, like, it's rough because, like, gosh, so much music is propaganda that is so damaging to the Black community. I'm not gonna say any names because they'll attack me. They fans will attack me, but it's hard. Like, if you go back and listen to some artists from the 90s, Black women, even ones that look like me or not, the messages they are spouting are horrible. And you see them play out now in our everyday actions, the messages that were being delivered by the music, which started off as a way to cope with trauma. But once capitalism got involved and the powers that be got involved, it mutated and changed what the music was supposed to be into something that is wholly violent and wholly disingenuous to the real message that it originally was. And that has been one of the most damaging factors, because music is a mantra. It gets into your head. It is always there. It is over and over and over again. I mean, like, we literally sit here and sing about murdering people all the time. We sit here and we listen to songs that talk about raping bitches, or, you know, I bet she looked better red. You know, like, all those messages in these songs are mantras, and people can't separate entertainment from reality easily. And so they continue to try to live in this state of entertainment because of the celebrity idolization that we have. And it's really, it's not serving to us. Like, artists like Toby Niguwe, who do a lot of positive or works that challenge them, aren't going to get supported by the powers that be and get money pushed behind them, because the message they want to send is one that keeps destructive stuff at a high level in order for them to be able to continue to have their agenda of pulling funds from those who stay in a perpetual cycle of self-destruction.
And take a breath. And take a breath. You mentioned earlier about, you were talking about some of the women in your family. And I'm curious about whether it's women in your family, whether it's your kind of or early mentor in the tattoo industry that you talked about, or anybody, but who inspires your joy? So who inspired it? Like, when you can think back to being a young person, who kind of, who seeded that? And then when you think about now, you know, who inspires that joy for you to, again, just have something to look to, but also to bring into the fold of your work?
I've been very fortunate to have people who have done their small part in the world by supporting me as a creative. From that first kindergarten art teacher, as an older white lady, her name was Miss Perry, who told my mom that I had talent. Like, this lady, she's passed away now, but like, she was alive during Jim Crow. Like, she was a participant in the things that got us to this point today, whether willingly or not. You know, existing in America, you really don't have a choice but to participate. But her, and even just saying to my mom, hey, this is something you should do with your child, because I think there is a future in this for her. My mom would have never known. Oh, it's a kid that likes to scratch on papers, you know, like, what is that? I had another amazing art teacher in high school, a couple of them, Mrs. Greer and Mr. Wilson. They were high school and the only two Black art teachers I ever had. And they were phenomenal creatives and were super instrumental in making sure that I continued working on my art as a passion and to make it, you know, into a career. And my family as well, like my one of my aunts was a jet setter. Like, she worked at FedEx and used to do jump seat back in the day, and so she traveled so many places, and she was the only Black woman I knew that had done as many things as she had, and gone to as many places as she had. And she was very inspirational in my love of travel and wanting to go and experience different things, because you know, I wanted to see how other people in the world live. Like, you know, like, we humans all live in different ways to the same end. So what is wrong with experiencing that, and what is wrong with loving and learning about and experiencing those things, which for some reason in America, people really hate if somebody might live possibly better than them. Like like I don't understand why our society thinks that people getting their health taken care of is a bad thing. Like I don't even like I can't function. Like I can't get on this train of thought. And so it just really doesn't like make sense that we have been so brainwashed by capitalism that individuals think like corporations instead of like a community that we are. And I think I answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, about who inspired you. I mean, you brought that really full circle. Last two questions, so I can get you out of here, because I'm sure that somebody who's been waiting for a long time is about to come sit in that chair and they want their turn, and I don't want to take any of their space. So you have some current exhibits that are happening in the world. I want you to talk about that, and then I'll get to our last question. So what kind of exhibits, and where can people see you, find you, learn more about you?
Yes. So art exhibits, I have a show up right now called Culture Commodity at Vanderbilt Divinity School. It's up until March 5th, I think. And it's also in the Tennessee Triennial, which the highlight weekend is coming up March 1st through the 4th here in Nashville. You can go to Tennessee Triennial's website, or the Engine for Art, Democracy, and Justice, led by Maria Magdaleno Campos Pons, who's also an amazing artist. Yes, I say her name.
I love that name. Yes, that's good.
She's a dope artist from Cuba who's does a lot of work surrounding these kind of issues as well. And I also have a show that I'm going to drop off my piece for at TSU in the Hiram Van Gordon Gallery. That opens, I think there's going to be a reception in March. It'll be on my website once I have the exact date. And that piece is really dope. It's called Crown and Glory, the exhibit, and it's about Black hair. And I love my hairstyle. I love my hairstyle. I've got some murals coming up. You can follow me on my website and on my Instagram, Queen BEEINK, Queen B Inc. And I've got for all those who want tattoos, okay, I'm going to be tattooing all of May and June hardcore. So I'm going to have a few openings then. If you don't know about it, you gotta go and get on my email list. You can do that through my website, or you can do it through my Instagram link in bio. But if you're not on that email list, you will not get the link to pick a date when they come out, and they're gone within 10 minutes.
Very quick. I was going to say that is probably the hottest ticket. People are going to get, I mean, there are a number of artists coming out this year with concerts, and those have been hot tickets. Let me tell you, this is going to be a hot ticket to get on that list to get your tattoo.
Yeah.
I love that. Last one. Go ahead.
One more thing. So I'm doing a series called The Honey Dip, which is on YouTube. It's a new video podcast series where I'm having cool conversations like this while I'm tattooing people who are dope individuals as well. My first episode was with Jackie Gresham, the first Black tattooer in America. My second episode just came out with Clint Gray from Slim and Huskies, and they're dope interviews. Check them out. This is going to be a series. It's going to drop once a month on YouTube called The Honey Dip. You can find that again on my website or on my Instagram. And I'm also going to have a Patreon coming out because I'm doing a lot of community work, and anybody who wants to support the mission and vision of my own self, which is fine art with community purpose, is my mission. I'm going to be introducing that soon so you can support the work. And also it'll have some spots on there in certain tiers for tattoos. So, you know.
I mean, come on. Listen, talk about, work within what you can work within, right? This is about how we're working in a capitalistic society, and then make sure that you're also able to do your work and then also support the community, which I absolutely love and think that that's so important. Last question. You've shared so many things today that have been, I hope, challenging to the community about their understanding about Blackness, Black joy, how we can envelop it more. But if it's something you haven't shared, what was the last parting word around how you would challenge people to get back to what I would consider is their ancestral birthright, to have access to joy? Because our ancestors couldn't always have access to it, but dreamed of it. And so it is a part of our birthing that we now get access because we can freely move around. And so what's the last challenge you would give to our listeners about that?
One, to take time and get off of social media. Like, social media is not real life. People spend a lot of money and a lot of time to curate very curated images, videos, spaces, places, and we are literally giving away free marketing basically to these corporations whenever we are giving free advertisement about their stuff. They used to have to pay advertising companies a ton of money to make ads that would convince people to purchase X, Y, and Z. But now, for one free thing that they can write off for a couple bucks, we will literally sponsor anything and sell people lies. So we have to start like caring about each other as people and not seeing people as just a dollar number like the corporations do, changing our mindset from corporate, bottom line capitalism to actually, hey, this is a person. I'm not going to sell them something that I know doesn't actually work. I'm just doing it to make a few dollars and get some likes on Instagram. But in order to do that, we have to stop putting ourselves into their place to brainwash us, like to give us the propaganda that makes us think that, well, I need to buy this thing, I need to have this thing, or this information is something that I must spend money on and time on, because it's a time suck and it's really affecting our kids the most. I do, like I said, a lot of work with like high schoolers and just young people, and social media is a demon. It is a demon, and it is unfortunately controlled by people who don't care about the individuals that they hurt in this way. So taking time to step away from that and changing your mindset on, just starting with yourself and thinking about ways that you can do small things in the community for somebody.
I love that. I wrote down as you were talking about shifting from corporate mindset to communal love. And so that's a great place to end when we talk about Black joy. Thank you so much for
I appreciate
accepting the call to be here. I knew you were the best person, but then I didn't really know that, how amazing this conversation would be. Give Black, Give Back conversations was really created because so often our stories are told orally, and we wanted to memorialize. And so in 10, 15, 30 years, when we go back and look at the history, the record around, our first Black tattoo artist and our first Black tattoo shop in Middle Tennessee, that we want them to pull the record. And not just make up the story, but actually have the story that's been told. And so this shaped in love and Blackness and excellence and action for our community. Thank you for you, Elisheba, for being here. Thank you to our viewers, our listeners for being here. Thank you to the Community Foundation for letting us take up all the space, because we do that every other month. And so we'll be back in a couple of months, Lisa Swift-Young and myself, Kia Jarmon. Thank you to our team at the Community Foundation for being so supportive. And make sure you go do something to celebrate Black joy during this month, even if you're not Black. Don't forget to give Black, everybody.